All right, looks like we've got about 12, 13 folks. We need more.
Yeah, I still got people in the breakout rooms. Let me make sure they know how to do it.
Can you close the breakout room and that'll automatically send everybody back?
I'm kind of afraid it's going to close the main call, but let's give it a shot.
We'll blame it on Darnice if it messes up.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, it does that. It asks everybody to return to the main room. Very cool.
We'll raise up Darnice if it works.
I'm paying attention, Joey.
I know.
Well, it looks like the left in your breakout room is Johnny. Try and close him again. Okay. All right. So, Mr. Brenner, what say you?
All right. So here's where we're at. I think we're at a close agreement on the Article 9 wages, right? We make no bones about that. We want to hammer on and figure out what's the appropriate quote unquote Me Too language that suffices. I think the district's in agreement on that. For us, we would love some sort of either further discussion and or response on the Article 10 custodial issue and Article 11 working out of class. Now, I will say this, on the working out of class, we get that that's a magnificently complicated issue. It's one that we are, not in agreement on. We hadn't been in agreement in 3 years on it. We want to keep bringing it up because it continues to be a hot button issue amongst our bargaining group. And we need to figure out, what's a better lay of the land on that. And I'll do a follow-up with you on the shuttle run issue. I think we had effectively done, that's non-bargaining, we'll say that, as is the Washington National payroll deduction. That's not a bargaining issue. I think it's more of a department issue that we can handle outside of this process. But I think, if we can hammer out an agreement on Article 9, Article 10, and a conversation starter on Article 11, again, saying it's very complicated, I think we have a deal, though, I'll say that I don't have the intention of having this drag out a long time. I don't think the district does either. I don't think my committee does. But I know these are hot button issues that, we've spoken about. Our committee's spoken about for years, talking about, and today's no different.
Now, I can appreciate that. The 10.2, it sounds reasonable, but I feel like I need to do a little more investigation before I can agree to that. I just need to find out what's going on. I have Mark Mitchell is doing a little research and recon on that for me on parts of it, and we need to reach out and find out what's really going on. The temporary junior hire classification, it's going to require a much deeper conversation than what we can accomplish today. So if that's kind of the hang up that we have to have that conversation, then I think we're done for the day. And I think we need to go and find another date to do bargaining again. The problem that we're going to run into is we start bargaining with PBA on the 25th, and we're getting ASOP in as well shortly. So it's going to be harder to find time to get, time for us to bargain. So we can certainly do that. Again, it's not where I want to be at this point. I'd rather get the deal and get the money into the hands of our employees while we still have it, versus, waiting. These are items that I think need a much broader discussion. The language you're proposing for 11.3 doesn't fix the problem. You're going to need a form, which is going to have to go through the forms committee. It's something we're going to have to work on. And does that need to be something that's electronic? And how do we run it through e-forms? Is it something we could do through PeopleSoft? It would be, and that would be some kind of programming issue that we would need to look at. So it's not as if we're completely adverse to just, I don't know that we'll get to where you are, but it's certainly something we need to talk about. But again, we're not going to get it done tonight.
No, so, I wouldn't expect you to have an answer. I'll say this, and I don't want to be out of line with my committee here, but on the Article 9 wages and, what are we calling the Me Too provision. And then if we can use the next session to hammer out that language, as well as the Article 10 allocations, if you need to do more investigation. I don't know if you've got time to get back enough time to get enough information that would help inform the district on a counter proposal before next week. I have some ability to meet next week. I don't know if you do.
I don't. So that's kind of the problem. Is it's a shortened week. We have a board meeting. I'm negotiating with PBA as well. Plus my calendar's pretty full on next week. So we're talking, we're pushing it back almost 3 weeks before we can get back to the table. The end of January, beginning of February. It frees up much better after like I said, we're dealing with PBA on the 25th. So after the 25th, I have some more time. This just puts it going to the board much later. We're talking now March. And I have a deep concern that what we're going to see out of Tallahassee could make all of this moot, and I don't want to claw that money back.
When is your February board meeting? 3rd?
Beginning of February. I think it's the 8th. Is that correct, Mr. Burke? Do you know? Somewhere around there. Let me look. I think the 17th is the regular board meeting. There's nothing on the 10th. There's a special meeting on February 3rd, but I don't know that we can get on that. So it's the 17th. The next option would then be, you're looking at, March.
So March 24th, because we have spring break.
Right.
Just for clarification, can I ask, so we're okay with the Me Too language. What's the issue that's holding us up? Is it the custodial supplements for people that are working out of class? Or I'm just not clear what the issue is that's holding us up.
Well, the custodial supplement language, they want language that they can't be removed for arbitrary and capricious. I think there's a little bit more to this. Mark Mitchell about, to have some clarity around that issue, because I'm not sure the union's fully informed on a few things, and I don't want to go into something without everybody being aware of what's going on with that supplement. So the Me Too language, I think, I don't have a problem with conceptually what you have. We just need to hammer it out. This does not include any monies, any percentage that teachers may have received under the state. Since that's going to the board on Wednesday. If you want to just have it be ASOP and PBA, that you would not get anything less than PBA or ASOP, that we could do tonight. Otherwise, we'd have to kind of think through that language on CTA.
Yeah, I think we still have to have the Article 10 issue resolved in Article 11 conversation, which
Okay, well, the Article 11 conversation is probably more than one meeting because, and I'm not sure we're going to get agreement on it, because we don't agree that this is being abused to the extent that 3 times. We go back to our groups. They're not aware that things are happening. They're not hearing it. When we had our caucus, we discussed it. We're not hearing what you're hearing. So I don't know if these are one-off situations, one here, one there, but we don't hear about them. So it's hard for us to make a financial commitment, because it is a financial commitment. It's a 10% increase, or the minimum of the next step. So that's not something that we're going to be able to agree to right off the bat. We're going to have to go through and really look at it. And we've gone through it before. We haven't found the number of cases and we've discussed it before. You told me, well, people aren't reporting it because they don't want, to be retaliated against by their supervisors. I get all that. But at the same time, we have to price that out. There is a cost to that.
Sure.
So we have to price it out. And then that's against the 3.5. So we have to understand exactly what we're committing to with the board before we could agree to it. So this is going to take some time to agree to that, to figure that out.
No, I mean, we wouldn't ask you to make those such commitments without knowing, what you're getting into. I'll say that, Article 11, we want to have those conversations. I think Article 10 would be the most pressing on those supplements and what constitutes rationale for them being pulled from somebody. We don't, because we're seeing some indications that it's arbitrary. That is the reason for their being pulled. And we want to protect our members from having that happen to them. And I'll say this, Article 11, I don't want to belabor like this is the most pressing issue to our bargaining unit in the history of man. But I will say it's something that comes up, and we know a lot of people are not, super willing to bring it to management's attention. So they bring it to the union's attention sometimes years after the fact. And I know in our previous discussions we'd had in the boardroom, face to face, management came and wanted some sort of, not anecdotal, wanted some examples, and we provided at least one here today that met that criteria for moving some stronger union-friendly language in Article 11, which we've done so. So I get that, if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't make a commitment on Article 11.3 without, delineating, what marks when an employee is moved into a higher classification, the start time, the end time, what have you. I understand that impulse. I will say the Article 10, I think that's something that could be resolved a heck of a lot quicker, to give an employee, rights and recourse if and when their allocations are pulled. Because right now it's completely at the whims of an assistant principal or principal, I believe.
So if we agreed to the Me Too language and agreed to the change in 10.2, we'd have a deal today?
And if we had discussions going into Article 11 for the whole contract's up December of 2021. I think so.
Correct.
There is, I do want to have another conversation, maybe offline. I told you about already with transportation.
Correct. So we need to talk about, we need to do further investigation into the shuttle run, the Bencor issue, and the Washington National Benefits issue.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the things that I've been toying with, and unfortunately, because COVID kind of threw everything, all my plans into it. One of the things I wanted to start doing with the unions is prior to negotiations, start talking about some of the issues that have been lingering for a while and coming up with ways to maybe creatively thinking outside the box ways to solve those problems. So, we could talk about 11.3 at length, in the what I'll call the off season to figure it out. And if you can come to me and bring me more than just, the one-offs that we're hearing, and maybe if it's in particular categories or particular departments where it's occurring, so we can do the research and figure out how often are they doing this? How often are we really asking somebody to step outside their job and take on the role of somebody else, so that we can also then create the form, get it through forms committee, so that when we go to bargain in this, in the fall, we'll already have a better idea. We'll have a process in place, because I agree that if there are departments or directors that are abusing this practice, pulling somebody completely off their task and having them do something entirely different, and then their other job is not getting done by them at all, then I agree that this should come into play and they should be compensated for it. But we need to kind of understand, what is the cost of that to the district? So I think that's a conversation we can certainly have in the off season, and continue to have conversations about it and work our way through which departments, which areas this is a problem. And then what do we do if they're at the top of their classification? They're the top of whatever it is in their unit, within their bargaining unit. What do we do at that point? I think that's a discussion that has to be made as well, because that's the issue that's come up before, is the compensation that was being requested was outside the bargaining unit. So we'd have to come up with, what does that look like, is where I would land with that. So we could do the Me Too language and agree to 10.2, but that's all we could agree to today in order to get a deal.
Yeah, I mean, can you break us back into caucus rooms? Because I need to run this by my committee.
Oh, look at you. Okay, let me give it a shot again.
And I also remind you there is no off season. Maybe that's a hurricane thing.
Well, that is true to a certain extent. Okay, it looks like it set them right back up the way they were. Let me just make sure. Okay, it should work like that.